So before we begin, I want to talk about something from my last review. I was pretty harsh on the story Pressure, yet a good handful of commenters were keen to remind me that one of Luca's character traits was that he was uncomfortable with portraying a child murderer, and that the whole story was kind of him fighting the urge to give in to the anger, and that him killing Earl in the end was like a symbolic, physical representation of him finally triumphing over that evil. So remembering all this, the story direction does seem to make more sense, and the inclusion of the Earl character doesn't seem as random, so I'll give the story that. I still think that the actual story direction and the actual execution was not the optimal one. I think it was probably the least interesting direction it could have gone, and that doesn't change the fact that the way that Earl was actually handled within the story doesn't change the fact that it was very clunky. So I still don't think it's a good story, but now it's not as bad to me. I do like read these books really fast, and sometimes things just don't stick with me. Sometimes just kind of overlook certain details, so forgive me. It doesn't happen a lot. I think that usually when I call a story bad, there's always a good reason, but in this case, I think I was just a mite too harsh with Pressure, so there's that. Again, I still don't really think it's a good story, but again, not as bad. So anyway, on with the review. Caden works as a mechanic at a Freddy Fazbear's water park, where he has to constantly repair the marine-themed underwater animatronics, which clashes with his submechanophobia. But a grisly discovery within the tank leads Caden to wonder whether he is right to fear the robots, or if there is something more sinister afoot. Firstly, I want to clarify something in the text. The book claims that the definition of submechanophobia is the fear of machines underwater. And while that's what the word literally translates out to, it's not just limited to machines. Broadly speaking, submechanophobia can refer to any submerged man-made object. This includes animatronics, yes, but also shipwrecks, buildings, statues, and even debris. It's the presence of sizable, imposing things in places they shouldn't be, combined with the physics of the water, making them appear much larger and more menacing than they really are. But all that psychology is not for this video. Back to the review. I got Stephen King's Joyland vibes from this one. That too is about a young man who works at an amusement park and uncovers a mysterious death that occurred there, with an ever-growing suspect list creeping up behind him. I'd recommend that. That's a good read. I did like the creativity behind the concept. I vibed with the cast of underwater animatronics, and Caden's a decent protagonist. Although some of the side characters leave something to be desired. For example, his boss, named Martin Copper, his first lines of dialogue are, "Your job is to fix the animatronics when they break. I hired you because of your background in mechanics. You took shop classes in high school, right?" Wow, Martin, I didn't realize you were an expositionist as well. So yeah, Caden's freaked out by the water bots, and his fears take flesh when he discovers evidence that there might be a dead child's skeleton in the tank with them. So the story's about him trying to figure out what happened to the kid while trying not to raise suspicion because that might shut down the water park. And at the same time, a bunch of mysterious accidents happen to him that he begins to suspect were orchestrated to shut him up. He's got a suspect list that's like 2 people long. He goes into the tank one night to find more evidence, and he's attacked by the animatronic diver, but it turns out that it's actually his boss, Martin Copper. Okay, so was this old-timey diver animatronic an actual wearable costume this whole time, or did Martin replace it with an actual diver suit? And did Martin really think that the best way around this situation was to dress up as the diver and hide in the tank at night to make sure that no one came snooping? Yeah, the mystery element was fine up until the ending, when it becomes just as plausible as a Scooby-Doo episode. But this time the tackiness is unintentional. Also, it's that time again. Time to diagnose these Fazbooks with yet another disease. I'm surprised I didn't think of this earlier, but looking back, this one really sticks out like an infected thumb. This one's called Night Malaise. This refers to when a story is lacking in the horror department, so it makes up for it with this fantastically graphic nightmare scene. We've seen it in Dance With Me, Blackbird, Pizza Kit, Frailty, and now Submechanophobia. Now granted, I do love a good nightmare scene, and dream sequences can be very effective and allow for some very creative moments. But when they're in there, substituting for the fact that not much is happening in the story, especially when the dreams don't tell you anything new, it becomes obvious that it was deliberately inserted just to remind the reader that yes, this is indeed a horror story. In Submechanophobia, there's a nightmare sequence where Caden imagines a bunch of kids jumping into the tank and all the animatronics eat them. Apart from this reminding me of that scene from The Prince of Egypt where all the babies are being thrown in with the crocodiles, ultimately it really just didn't add anything to the story. The best dream scenes add backstory, add layers to pre-existing information, or foreshadow future events. So what did this scene tell us? That he thinks the animatronics are the ones that killed the kid? Yeah, I remember that from 2 pages ago. I may be dumb, but I'm not stupid. Wait. So yeah, this story was fine. The mystery element was fine, the protagonist was fine. I wish they'd refined some parts, but otherwise nothing really offensive about it. Next. The FNAF fan club at Robbie's school elects a new president, and with the principal backing them, their animatronic apocalypse role-playing game might get a boost in reputation. But soon all the club members partake in a series of strange, cultish rituals, spearheaded by none other than Principal Renner himself. Can Robbie uncover the mystery behind the madness, or will he too succumb to the animatronic apocalypse? This one had a lot going for it. Granted, I wouldn't be surprised if this FNAF Dungeons & Dragons spin-off idea were inspired by the Stranger Things craze. Fazbears and Fortresses, I don't know. If you think of something better, leave it in the comments. But the idea of a school club falling under a mysterious delusion is a good one, and let me tell you, the actual things that they do, they eat dirt, they bury themselves in the ground so that only their faces show, they carry around big black beetles in Altoid cans and eat them alive. Good God! That's just one of those details that's so uncannily specific that it becomes kind of genius. So yeah, a good setup, the progression was really good. I was excited, I was like, oh my God, what the hell is happening? I can't wait till the ending.
You, want me to sign it for you?
Nah, I didn't like the ending.
What the fuck, guys? What went wrong? Which of you co-authors suffered some personal trauma at home and decided to lash out by sabotaging the ending to this book? Was it you, Kelly? Blink twice if you're under duress. So for some context, Principal Renner and the new club president, this girl named Sabrina, are in cahoots to spread whatever delusion they're concocting among the rest of the club, and Robbie's the only one who doesn't go along with it. So at the end of the story, Robbie confronts Mr. Renner at his house. The man's wearing a Freddy Fazbear mask. The rest of the club members are there, like it's a freaking cult. Robbie and Principal Renner fight. Robbie stabs him in the gut with a fireplace poker. He bleeds black oil and what? At Durham's school, other than a couple of uncomfortable silent encounters with Daniel and Rick, like former club members, life was back to normal. Apparently, Sabrina transferred schools. One day, she was just gone. Hopefully, she wouldn't be the president of any more clubs. Tina, Nathan, Johnny, and a few of the other club members gave Robbie small smiles when they saw him around school. No one mentioned that day to Mr. Renner's, or Mr. Renner at all. The school had gotten a new principal named Mrs. Alvarez. You know what? One sec. This is all the cash I have in my wallet. I will pay you to go back to the story and write a better ending. Because the one you gave us sucks! Seriously, did you run out of time? Did your imagination tanks spring a leak and run dry? How could you, in good conscience, conclude such an outlandish yet weirdly compelling story with that shit? Why did they eat bugs? Why did they bury themselves in the dirt? Who's the bad guy? Was it Zabrina or was it Renner? What was Renner? He bleeds black oil. That should be a hint, right? I don't know. I think Eleanor bled black oil. I think the Stitch Wraith had something to do with black oil. But you know what? All of you theorists out there, just eat this stuff up. And you're going to say something stupid like, oh, Renner was actually Eleanor 2.5 using an illusion disk because this shade of red is different when you launch security breach for the 100th fucking time and press the clown nose on night 3. Screw you! Look, not even the FNAF wiki knows what he is. He's labeled under creatures. Question mark? Guys, it's okay to admit that these stories are crappily written. Scott Cawthon is not playing underwater 4D chess with you. You don't have to fish a lore connection out of every narrative indecision you see. Just calm down, take a step back, and understand that maybe your darling franchise is imperfect, and that what's motivating a lot of this is profit-driven cynicism and incoherent senses of storytelling, because the fact of the matter is, these books are mid. Also, I forgot to mention, this story and the story before it both feature a lot of exclamation points outside of dialogue, and it got super obnoxious. Who wrote those two? Kelly Para? You know what? That's a name I haven't heard in a while. Maybe for good reason. Good setup, great development, cheap, unsatisfying, stupid ending. Just fuck my life. Just take my life, just bend it over this chair and give it the Faz treatment it deserves. That got a bit graphic, I'm sorry. Next! Abe bullshits his way into a new apartment, which was supposedly off limits for technological malfunctions. He quickly learns that the place is inhabited by the Bobby Dots, a trio of female holographic helpers whom he names Rose, Gemini, and Olive. But a number of near-fatal accidents make him question whether the Bobby Dots are really as helpful as they claim, and whether their dysfunctional predecessors are in the apartment with them. He quickly learns that the place is inhabited by the Body Dots, am I even saying that right? The Body Dots? Body Dots. Is it Bobby Dots? Bobby Dots, damn it, Bobby Dots. Bobby Dots. A two-parter. Wow, we're really getting ambitious now. No, but seriously, this one was actually good. It's paced very well. Characters and character moments are allowed to breathe, the conversations don't feel forced, and the tension is allowed to build without feeling rushed. Being a two-parter was a really good decision. You have to wonder why it took them so long to come out with a story like this. Really, I would much rather read, a longer story divided into parts that's actually, well written. Prior to getting the apartment, Abe lived in a secret hidey hole in the Pizzaplex. I wonder if it's related to that room in the game. And speaking of which, oh my god, things from the game. Moondrop and DJ Man make appearances. I mean, sure, they're just cameos, but at least they remind us that, yeah, this is actually a FNAF story. But let's talk about the stars of the show, the Bobby Dots. The moment they got to describing their physical appearances, I only thought one thing. Oh no. Anime! Ah! Seriously though, it was only a matter of time before we got some Giffany looking bitches in the Fazbooks. Yet another instance of that one Gravity Falls episode predicting Five Nights at Freddy's. They have the same color scheme as the Powerpuff Girls, and physically I kind of picture the Totally Spies. Don't ask me why I know all that. Their personalities were kind of predictable, but fun all around. I enjoyed the banter for what it was. Of course, if this story were any bit of realistic, Abe would be trying to have sex with them. I mean, come on. It's the current year. You've got anime girl servants, presumably 18 plus, hopefully 18 plus. You cannot tell me Abe never once wondered if sexual satisfaction was in their programming. I'm sure a developer hid a back door in their code. But of course, the story ends on a cliffhanger. They're actually the Gen 2 Bobby Dots, and they allege that the ones that are responsible for messing with their programming and orchestrating all the accidents around the apartment are the Gen 1 Bobby Dots. They're physical beings who live up in the attic and creep down at night. But what is the truth behind it all? We will find out in part 2. Dun dun dun! Don't spoil it for me, but I think that the Gen 2s don't actually exist and that they're just projections by the Gen 1s to try and manipulate Abe. I'm excited to see part 2. Hope it's not totally stupid. Anyway, the epilogue. I actually completely forgot to read the epilogue, so I'm just going to do that right now. Oh, that was gnarly as hell. Okay, so yeah, epilogue part 4. The thing's called the Mimic. Apparently it can like extend and contract its animatronic parts to fit into any suit. That's pretty cool, I guess. Some good character dynamics. We learn more about them. The pacing's still pretty slow. It feels more like a novel than anything. I think the Stitch Rate saga felt more like a novella, but that definitely feels like a novel that's just been broken up and spread throughout these Fazbooks. So that's cool. That's pretty cool. Yeah. So fucking Joel, the way he died gets chopped up by the fan because the thing moved away. Oh, that's a good scene right there. I'm really enjoying this so far. Like I said, I mean, it could spiral down out of control, just like the Stitch Rate saga, but considering the slow pace, I think it's just going to keep this one contained story, keep it going for the rest of the Tales of the Pizzaplex, so I'm more optimistic this time around. Yeah, that's about it. I'll see you all next time.